your work with farmers, and please, what it is helping us is to develop an inventory of the familiarity with digital technologies of the group we have here. And you talked about baselines. I think we need to know the baseline of what your experience with digital technologies is before we help design learning around that. So it's an important one. So clearly we have good experience. We have experience with spatial biometric, web farm, Kobo toolbox, exactly, SMS, farm SMS. So that's what it shows, that there is a lot happening in this space. This is not a space in which people have not done. So we have the soil maps, Soil for Africa, we have the agroclimatic industry, we have the land registry, and e-farming, lots of it. So I feel that 30 responses till now, everyone has one or the other experience in this group, and which is a very good thing. Because in this current world, no person has not worked on a digital technology, is not aware of that. But big challenge is how to take this on scale when you work with small farmers. It's not enough to know about digital. It's important to adapt it and develop solutions for farmers and other stakeholders which are there. So clearly, Kobo toolbox, very important. I think it's good. People are using Kobo toolbox. It's used by a number of people all over the world. Data analysis software, SMS, definitely. Everything starts with SMS and WhatsApp these days. There are countries in COVID times where all the extension was happening through SMS and WhatsApp. So it's not like, and then people discovered that this is a very important tool. So then lots of data systems, DCAS, I think you should learn about DCAS. I've heard about this. A lot of digital climate advisory services being developed in FRSP and ICRA. So this gives you a flavor of a lot of people have used a range of technologies there, which gives us hope that we will be able to create the next round of learning based on your own experience and experience which others have had. So I'll stop at this stage and hand over back to...
One more question.
One more question?
Yep.
Oh, one more question. Okay, there are three. So again, it's related to the first question. I think we heard challenges already in the first question. So these questions are a little bit overlapping. So indulge with us a little bit and give us a little bit more your thinking on what challenges you have faced there. So it is basically to say that in your own personal experience, if you have tried to do digital farmer registries, which is the one challenge you faced? Just think of one most important challenge. Capacity, internet connectivity, farmer trust, literacy, challenges in familiarizing client buy-in, cost, data ownership, outdated information, poor network services. So connectivity, cost, trust, capacity, all these things have kept coming in, financing. Although you should realize that in every FRSP project, there's a provision to do farmer registries. So I don't think we have a problem of finance, but it's a problem that we should get an optimum model, which is of reasonable cost, which we should be able to implement, which we will discuss as you go. Update of data, data sharing, data governance, confidentiality, literacy, all the things which you're talking about. So I think you have a fairly good sense of what issues you are facing in establishing digital farm registries. So data quality people are talking about. Who goes and collects this data? Very important. Can we send anyone to collect the data and then get a lot of garbage in, and then analytics and policies decides based on that? Will not work. Very important point. Cost. Now, how do we do at optimum cost? Because we have a lot of innovative data collection technologies which we can use. Capacity gaps, definitely. Literacy, connectivity, farmer trust. So I think these are broadly the 4 questions, and I would urge that when we are doing group work and the Ignite Talk presenters, Priscilla and Malawi, please talk about these challenges while you are making your Ignite Talk. Your task is even more difficult even if you had thought you will present something, you need to now cover some of these points while making your Ignite talk. So, because you have had first-hand experience of doing it.
Now,
So,
let's not overload our things. But this is great. Thank you so much for facilitating it, for the really good feedback. Priscilla, can I invite you up, please? Please welcome Priscilla Muriuri, the FSRP Project Coordinator for Kenya, who's going to give us a lightning presentation. I know that Parmesh wants you to add some things, but I mean, Parmesh, this is already lightning already. And welcome.
Thank you.
Please proceed. This is a slide-less presentation, right? Am I correct?
Yes, it is.
Over to you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're not.
So good morning, everyone. Mine is very simple task. Basically, it's to share the Kenyan experience in digitalization. Let me start by saying that in Kenya, we have a lot of political goodwill towards transforming ag-food systems. And in one of our economic transformation pillars, we are targeting to create a digital superhighway. And it is upon the various sectors to now cascade it down to their level. Now, our digital journey began in 2016. Much as we have achieved much, it has not been a bed of roses. We began in 2016 as we were designing the Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Project. And during the project design, we made it deliberate, number one, to create 3 systems. Number one was the big data system. Number 2 was the climate and weather system towards improving agrometeorological forecasting, monitoring and forecasting. Number 3, we created a market information system. Now, you have heard from Parmesh that Kenya, we have been able to register 6.5 million farmers. We have also registered about 17,000 agro dealers and stockists, and this is for a reason. The geo-referenced farmers, who are 6.5 million, cut across the various counties. As you all know, in Kenya, we have a decentralized system of government. And our main aim was we needed to know our farmers, and we needed to know where they are and what they are doing, so that we can know their pain points and target interventions based on their pain points. You'll agree with me that data is not an end on its own. You need to provide a service, transform this data into knowledge, and provide a service to the farmer. And that is why we are talking about integrated weather and market advisories, which currently the farmers are receiving. In addition to that, what we are currently embarking on, we don't believe that we have reached our peak. We are currently developing a digital soil map so that we can be able now to leverage the farmer data, overlay it with soil data, so that we know for certain a particular farmer's soil soil and fertilizer requirements. So once we are able to know that, we are able to target our interventions. And once we target our interventions, that means we shall be providing the correct, precise inputs for a different farmer. In addition to that, we are also onboarding agripreneurs who will be charged with the responsibility of providing ag-tech services and linking the farmers to both input and output markets. Remember again, the process of farmer registration is not a one-off. It is a repetitive and continuous process. So what we are saying, these farmers will be tagged to agripreneurs, and these agripreneurs are young people. We are targeting about 9,500 of them. That means we are creating 9,500 jobs for the young people in Kenya. The agripreneurs will work with the farmers and continue providing the much needed e-extension as well as linkages to both input and output markets. On challenges, Parmesh, we have had quite a number of challenges. Number one, the exercise is not cheap. It's quite expensive. And therefore, you need to be prepared. Number two, sometimes we are all Africans, isn't it? And we know that there are things you don't count. You don't count goats and cows. You don't count a man's wealth, true or false? So sometimes we are faced with challenges convincing a farmer that I want to take stock of what you have, and I also want to georeference your farm so that I can also get the acreage of that farm. So that has been one of our challenges, but over the years, we have been able to circumvent it, and we are now at a place where we are. So with that, I wish to stop here unless you have a question.
I think that is great. Let's have a big round of applause. Very nicely done. We'll be addressing these kind of challenges shortly in the working group. Thank you, madam. I'd like to invite up Nicholas Makandawire, M&E Specialist, FSRP, Project Coordinator representing in Malawi. A big hand, everybody. Now, that's not a big hand, a big hand. It takes a lot of courage to get up in front of you folks. So, my friend, give us 3 to 5 minutes of your best.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I want to briefly talk about our experience in Malawi, and I'll just answer 5 questions. What used to happen before the digitalization of all our farmers, and what exactly did we do to get there? And then what are some of the few benefits that we are seeing, some few challenges, and where we are moving next? One of the major uses for the digital agriculture or digital platform was for the government, was for the government to use as a source of selecting beneficiaries for the input subsidy. What used to happen in the past is that the government used to work with traditional authority, local leaders, as well as the extension agents to select beneficiaries for the input subsidy program. And because of human bias, they used to select their cousins, their relatives, their aunties, those that are loyal to them. So what happened is either we are selecting the people that were not meant for the program, for either because they were outside the category, because the main purpose of the input subsidy program was for us to increase productivity. So for us to increase productivity, we are targeting what we are calling productive farmers. So the basic challenge was mistargeting, which led to inefficient use of resources, because those farmers, some of them didn't have piece of land, some of them didn't have their own households, some of them were very rich, they were not into farming, so they only were selling most of the inputs. What has happened now? Now, through the support of FSRP, we hired a consultant, and a consultant recruited about 5,000 enumerators, and we stormed the whole country, Malawi, and we managed to register 3.4 million farming households in 50 days. So we are basically collecting data on what value chain they are growing, what size of land they have, what was their productivity in the last 3 years, and then where is their location. So this database now has formulated a pool from which now the government can use. So some of the benefits that we have now is that, number one, we now know our farmers. We know where they are located. We know the size of land they have. And we know those who doesn't have land, which means they are not farmers. So this, for the first time in Malawi, we have selected our target, our input subsidy beneficiaries using this digital platform, where we selected close to 1 million farmers who are productive farmers. And we used the two credentials. We're using the size of land. They needed to have about 0.4 to 2.5 hectares of land, from 0.4 to 2.5, that category. They fall in that category. And then they should also have a minimum level of productivity, about 1,000 tons per hectare. So that was our, and then we have also been able to use it for other services. For example, in Malawi, we are boosting about leading in soil health, testing and pilot. We used the same digital platform to select the 36,000 farmers, and we have been working with them, and we were able to also are now connecting this platform to other platforms like Land Information Management System, UBR system, the Management Business Registration System, so that all the other services can be connected. Some of the challenges we have met include distances. For us to register the farmers, our enumerators were now supposed to get a geolocation of a household and then link it to a particular farm parcel. And then mostly we were having challenge of having a very long distance between the farm households and then the field. And then we also had the challenges in terms of hill location. Some places are located right like an island. So for us to get there and do digital registration was quite challenging. In terms of actual use, we have only used it in the pilot, as well as the selection of the AIP for the 2024-2025. So in the pilot, the main challenge was that some of the farmers were using numbers, phone numbers, that belong to their neighbors and not their own phone numbers. So this meant when we sent a message for the input for them to come and collect, the neighbor, the message went to another place. So they will say, I didn't receive, when the message went actually to their neighbor. And their neighbor is coming to claim. When we check on the list, the neighbor is not there. So in conclusion, as a way forward, I think in Malawi we just started. So we finished the registration, and then we are moving to the next step. Our next phase is now to develop a comprehensive digital data platform that has got all the other services, including extension service, including market service, and the other platform where we could be able to connect and give the necessary extension support to all the 3.4 million farmers. Thank you.
Hey, well done. Big hand, obviously. Nicholas, I think between you and Priscilla, either you're going to be a pastor or a very good politician. So just look at these faces. No, really, really. I'm a believer now. But thank you for that sermon. No, that was really good. Both of you did so well. Right, now it's time to get to work. We're now back to small group work. We've got 15 minutes. On each of your tables is this piece of paper, a solutions canvas. On the top, there's a blank space. In the next 15 minutes, after you've appointed a facilitator and a rapporteur, in that space, I want you to agree on 3 top challenges and write them down. Then 3 groups will be selected with Parmesh to feedback. Then later, we'll use the same sheet on the bottom to sort of look at solutions as well when we get to that. Is that clear to everybody? Facilitator, rapporteur, we'll look at a few. We've got 15 minutes to look at the 3 key challenges to farm and farmer registry. Please go now. Last 5 minutes, last 5 minutes. Parmesh. Quite a few, couple. All right, you should be wrapping up. So we're going to. All right, you should be almost done. I'll give you 1 more minute, even though it says 2. 1 more minute. You're done. All right. All right. Even though it says there's 2 minutes left, in the spirit of going quickly, I'll give you the last minute. Give you the last 2 minutes.
Journalist association wanting to interview me during the break. I think they did not ask me about the Ethiopian conflict.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Let's get our attention here. We're going to ask 3 random groups to give us their 3 challenges quickly. We're going to check this group, 3, 8, and 7. Groups 3, 8, and 7 for this one. We'll get to other ones. Group number 3, could you stand up and give us your 3 challenges, please?
Hello.
Yes.
So the first challenge was resource allocation to digital farms and digital registries. The second challenge was connectivity. That actually covered quite a lot in it. We talked about infrastructure. When we talk about infrastructure, we spoke about gadgets, power, internet. Also, inside connectivity, we also came to the access to these farmers. So this is like the bad road networks, you know, so that all came under connectivity. And the third one was barriers. So in barriers, we had trust issues from the farmers, language barriers, and so on. So those are the 3 challenges we had.
Resonates. Thank you very much. Little round of applause, please. Shall we just take all three groups and then comment? Group number 8, and then group number 7, please. Can we have a microphone over here? And then we'll be going to wherever group table 7 is. Yes.
Thank you, moderator. This group came up with 3 plus 1 bonus challenge.
A bonus.
Yeah. The first one is on the land ownership and knowing the boundaries. It's one of the critical issues when you are registering the farmers. Inadequate capacity in terms of infrastructure and also human capacity is one of the issues. Cultural practices, bias, and lack of social inclusion. In some cultures, a husband or a man is the owner of the land. In other cultures, it's the wife. But when you look at the way they apportion the farm work, it might be the opposite. So we need that social inclusion. And also high illiteracy levels and mindsets. The bonus challenge. Thank you.
Very good. Hand a round of applause, please. The bonus question, well done sneaking that in. Well done. Table number 7, please. Oh, by the way, sorry, tell us who you are. I forgot to ask that question. Oh, dear, it's missing out.
Yes, in our group, the 3 challenges were first, the connectivity and energy access availability issue. Second, we talked about the high cost. To be specific, we talked about the initial capital cost for the purchase of the tablets or the infrastructure or training related costs. And lastly, we talked about farmers don't see benefits for participating in the data collection. We might need some reward for participation and the lack of willingness.
Thank you very much. Now, each presenter, stand up and tell us who you are and where you're from very quickly.
Il-Yun Ko from the World Bank from Washington.
And where are you from? Or what's your name and where are you from? Sorry. And your name? Because these brave people have stood up, so madam, just tell-
Kadesa Bartholomew Chataika. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you.
Mwaka Namukonda from Zambia, Executive Coordinator of Kayak.
Thank you so much. All right, Parmesh, over to you. We've got about a few minutes before break, so just a few feedback or thoughts on those challenges?
Sure. So what I see when I went to some tables, you already thought of how to solve those challenges, which will happen after the coffee break. And we will go for a practical how-to. So I'm not going to talk about that right now. Otherwise, I could take each one of them and talk about the solutions. We'll do it after the next break. But clearly the connectivity, and what you should realize is that registration is to be done by someone else, not by the farmer themselves. So if the farmer does not have digital connectivity, it's not necessary that you will not get farmers digitally registered. If you look at the Kenya example, and you look at the Malawi example, this is the 5,000 people who are going and collecting that data. In Kenya, we have the agripreneurs collecting that data. Now, those people need connectivity. And those people need connectivity in order to then transfer that data to do that. So connectivity is an issue, but not unsurmountable, and we will discuss how do you solve the problem of connectivity. Keep in mind, no solution is purely online. Everything is offline, online, physical. Digital solutions are not purely digital anytime. So keep that in mind when you look at that. Energy is definitely an issue. And now you have battery-based solutions to do this. So there are issues about connectivity also, which can be solved if the power is not there. So it's not that people who don't have power are not using phones world over. They're using phones. It says they found other ways of using phones. But I'm not going to cover this now. Cost is definitely an issue. The cost is high if you don't have good people who can do data collection analysis. If you don't have tech providers who can do that, then the cost is high. But if you have critical mass of people who know how to do technology in the country, they can do registration in a much more cost-effective way. More cost is not on collecting data, but more cost is on analysis and doing that. So keep the thing in mind that let's discuss this in the second session. How can you reduce cost and make it optimal, as opposed to having low cost there? keep that question at the back of your mind. But it's an important issue. Ideal, you should have some standards of cost benefit. In our group, they were talking about what are the benefits of a registry. Benefits of registries are not just improving targeting for fertilizer distribution. That's definitely a clear benefit. And that's how I think the Kenyan government said that we want to reduce the cost of fertilizer subsidy, and can we use registries to do that? So there is an intention behind that. But ultimately, the registry has to be used for developing services. So you should develop a cost-benefit ratio for using digital farmer registries. If you look at only cost and you don't look at benefit, then that's not a right way to do it. So please think about a cost-benefit framework for a digital farmer registry, and we will cover that in the next session. Now, clearly this about bias issue which this group brought out is a very important one. I think methodologically, you have to look at women and men farmers and ask questions from both if you want to create a complete picture there. So methodologically, you have to do things in a particularly sensitive way. Otherwise, you will just come and collect data and it will be incomplete and it will not be a good use for policy. So I think there's a point about being very careful about the methodology so that you are able to do it. It's a very good one, and I think we should really spend some time on making sure how we capture women farmers, where we capture joint ownership of assets. All things are very, very important. Then the whole issue of resource allocation for this activity, very important. I think let's think about this a little bit in the groups on what are the ways by which are there FRSP components you can use for doing this activity. When I look at all your things, there are ways to do it.
We have, listen, we have a little bit of time here. Why don't we take a couple more groups?
Yeah.
Group number 2 and group number 10, shall we?
And please now bring challenges which other groups have not bought. If they're missing from their group,
Well, that could be too much of a challenge, but I don't want to put you. Let's hear what, I think reinforcing it. Well, are you ready? Where's the microphone here, please? In group number 10, where is group number 10? And then we'll see if we have another group. We're on challenges now.
My name is Helen Omonti from Kenya. And the issues we came up with was high cost of implementation, which requires resource mobilization from partners across the board. And then the issues of mistrust emanating from use of the information, and also land disputes also are an issue, which cause also mistrust. And then the issue of poor quality data, which requires capacity building. So there is need for adequate sensitization on the exercise, on the method that is used. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, well done. Nice and crisp. A little applause for your colleagues. Table 10, are you ready to come and give us? Of course you. Oh, sorry. Of course you are.
I think table 10 also concurs with table 2 and other tables. And what I want to really stress here is the level of literacy. This, if many of the people are illiterate, then it's a challenge in establishing the system. Of course, they've mentioned the issue of trust. And trust comes with a lot of things to the farmers. Farmers don't trust many people, including government, because they think when you take their information, you'll use it against them. Like, for instance, hiking the taxes and many other things. But also technological barriers. We have it in the communities, the farmer, but also the people whom we're going to use to collect this. But also the technological barrier means accessing these gadgets themselves. Where are they? What is the cost of these gadgets to enable us perform the right work? But also what I wanted to bring on table is, where does the farmer registry interface with other registries? We have social registries, we have agricultural registries, we have many registries. How do we ensure that there's interface in this to avoid duplication, to avoid inclusion and exclusion errors? So this is what I'll pose.
And can you tell me your institutional affiliation?
My name is Carol Brenda Lorica. I work with FSRP IGAD. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really good points. I think, all right, listen, we've got 6 minutes left. Should we hear from one more table?
One more table.
Table 4. Where's table 4? Give us some of those challenges. Madam, tell us who you are.
My name is Tope Ande. I'm from Nigeria. I'm the president of She Farmers. I work with women farmers in Nigeria.
Nice.
Yeah, I think the first critical challenge is the Farmers Trust, which came up severally during our general conversation. You know, like what the pastor from, is it Malawi? Yeah.
The Malawi
Yes.
pastor, yes.
Yes, and the Kenya woman, the Nairobi woman who said that it is a taboo to come and count my farms, count my livestock.
Yes.
So we have that issue in Africa. So we need to actually try and get the farmers buy-in to see the benefit, the long-run benefit of what, the advantage of what he wants to do. Then secondly is the cost of, the second thing is digital illiteracy. You know, so there's need for a lot of education, roadmaps, because in Nigeria, 80% of the women are in rural areas. So they need, and they covers most of the business in the country. Though we have some multinationals, but their coverage is not as much as the women, which is their traditional business. So we need to do more of literacy and train them, teach them, and enlighten them of this intervention. Then the third thing is cost of execution. Really, there's no how private organization can execute digital intervention in agribusiness without the government buy-in. It is huge and it is expensive. So we need to bring the value proposition to the government for them to know that the benefit actually outweighs the cost. It might take a while, but the benefit is more than the cost. I think those are the basic challenges that we have in digitalization of farms. Thank you.
Very useful.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. I think these are both interventions, 3 interventions, very, very powerful. I think the point about social registry is very important. I think it's not necessary to start from scratch. If you have already something in their social registries, build on it and introduce additional. That will reduce your cost also significantly. So this point is very well taken, and World Bank itself is doing a lot of social registries in many countries supporting that. So I think that point of taking stock of what other registries exist in the beginning is a good point, and I think that should be included in the thinking behind it. The second is the communication and the mobilization and the trust building. That should not be underestimated. I think what countries have done is they have used the existing farmer groups, farmer organizations, as the way to do this, not just relying only on the government. And as you said also, that we have a number of farmer groups. We have, in Kenya also, number of farmer groups, cooperatives. So it becomes more like a multi-stakeholder platform of why we are doing it, as opposed to only government wanting it for taxation or something else. So how do we communicate this in a way that people are able to understand the value of it and more stakeholders participate in the value proposition? So building the value proposition and communication is a very important precursor to that. Spend some time on that and not take it as a technocratic exercise to just do that. So I think if you look at all the countries which have done it, but countries have taken a different route to it. Countries have done it in a technocratic way, had an agency and got it done with. And there are countries which have built stakeholder trust and then done it. Sometimes if you spend too much time, it becomes politicized and then it never gets done. So there is a merit in doing this thing very quickly as opposed to taking ages to do that. But building trust and communication, important. Otherwise, people will give you data. It's related with data quality. If you don't build that trust, people will give you very superficial data, and then the data is not worth the paper on which it is written. So it will be garbage in, garbage out, and that will not help us ultimately. So there's no easy way of doing it. Every country has a different political system. According to that, they have to do it. Yep. But what I have seen is that for tomorrow's ministerial, you have to develop a cost-benefit analysis of doing digitization. If ministers see the value of doing a cost-benefit, they should not look at only the cost. They should look at the benefit. Benefit is towards targeting subsidies. Benefit is towards linking with markets, providing good quality services. So it has to be 2 or 3 benefits as opposed to only one cost to it. So I think these are some of the things
Excellent,
which we will probably discuss in the next session also. But solutions are not going to fall from heaven. They are going to come from you only. And then I think this is what we will explore in the next one. And then we will also decide how we are going to help you going forward when on this learning also.
Thank you very much. Very good, very good. Thanks for the excellent participation. It's time to go to the next sermon. No, it's time to go to coffee. We have half an hour. We'll be back at 11:20. Thank you very much in advance for coming back on time. We're right on time. Thank you for all the presenters. Have some Buna, talk to each other, and we'll see you in half an hour for the next session. Thank you. That was the worst applause I've had yet. Now, come on. For everybody. See you in half an hour. going. I might have to have a reward system for the tables that are complete first. I can see there's going to be. Well, yeah, I have to work out something, don't I? All right, have a seat. Well, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for coming back on time. And we are now going to have a follow-up small group work on the solutions. Then we will have a presentation from Boniface over here, a short presentation. I'll introduce him. Let me introduce you right now, come on. Boniface Akuku, the digital agricultural specialist from the World Bank, all the way from, you came from Washington. No, you came from? Kenya. How did I not know that? Habari sana. So he's going to be working together with me on this one, and I'm going to support. But first of all, thank you, Boniface. So we'll, in your small groups, I know a lot of you have already jumped to solutions, which is great. We're going to give you 10 minutes to now fill out the bottom part of this page. And a lot of you have, which is fine, but just continue to have a 10-minute discussion on some solutions. Some of you have already highlighted some additional problems, like where does the registry sit, et cetera. You know, and you already raised, what if there's a social protection registry and how do we not duplicate? These questions we can discuss, maybe think of it in solutions. I'm giving you 10 minutes to do the bottom half of that solutions canvas. And if you've already written some down, just discuss for 10 minutes. Is that clear to everyone? And we'll, starting now, 10 minutes. Go ahead. As you can see, 5 minutes left. I think from what I can see, I think most people are done. Is that correct? Does anybody need a little more time? Looks like one or two groups. We'll give you the last 2 or 3 minutes then. We're going to hear from 3 groups at a time. If I could just have your attention, everybody. This is the problem with having good group work. People want to keep having good group work. So we'll just let them finish up. We're going to have feedback from table 5, 6, and 9, and then we'll have a little bit of a reflection from Boniface. We've got 15 minutes, so if we have a couple more tables we can squeeze in. Otherwise, we'll get to each table in the next session. So, table 5. Could you tell, where's table 5? By the way, I've got to figure out how to hand out prizes because these guys were fully here first, back from coffee. I'm going to get a really interesting prize one way or another. Maybe you can ring the bell. No, that's not good. Can we have a microphone here? Again, please introduce yourselves. Off you go, please.
Okay, I am Asafa Agaye from Ministry of Agriculture, Addis Ababa, working as MND for FSRP program. We have tried to dot few points on the practical solutions for problems raised before or on the before sections. The first solution we have suggested is motivation of smallholder farmers. That means, firstly, demonstrate this innovative technology on a model or sample area for demonstration purpose. Within this circle, we can motivate the farmers so that the farmer can demand this technology. The other is working closely with the government as a partner to hand over the technologies, to create ownerships, and the data governance, and the other related aspect of this innovative technology. The other is different apps can be used to improve the connectivity problems or to avoid problems in line, the problems that we may face in line with connectivity, like Kobo tool, GPS, cell phone can be used as a supporting tool to improve the limitations associated with this connectivity problem. Thank you, anyone.
Yes, applause is necessary. Thank you very much. We'll have a couple more first. Group number 6. We can have the microphone. Table number 6.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is group number 6, comprising of Ethiopia, Somaliland, Somalia, and Djibouti. Oh, I forgot the speakers from Malawi. Thank you. Yeah, I said, yeah. So I said Somaliland, Ethiopia, Somalia, and Djibouti, and Malawi.
Well done.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Ridwan Sopole from the Ministry of Agriculture in the Directorate of Planning. So we coordinate the program, FSRSP, in Malawi. Of course, it's managed by the PIO independently. We would like just to add voice to the solutions along with the 3 already identified challenges. Number 1, on cost, one of the things that we thought could happen is for ownership of government to prioritize the farmer registration. And once they prioritize and see the importance of this farmer registration, they could begin to provide for resources from within the government pass. And so we are saying if they can provide a sufficient budget to facilitate the farmer registration. That's the first one. On capacity, we're saying, just like I think it was reported in Malawi, there may not be internal capacity within the ministries, but there are capacities out there, and so outsourcing would be one of the options to help with the registration. Of course, this speaks also to the question of cost. But we think that when you have outsourced institution, organization which has sufficient capacity, should be able to give you credible registry. The last point on data quality in our discussion was saying there is need to have standardized data collection tools, proper training of data collectors, as well as cleaning and the validation of such data to make sure that there's a check on the data quality. Thank you so much.
Many times we actually do a lot of supply. We're just supplying to the farmers, supply. We just think about supply. But this needs to be a shift from just supply-driven approaches to demand-driven approaches. So how do you stimulate demand for the services from the farmers and from the stakeholders? So that's a critical point. The second point is the role of government. When it comes issues of data, and in this era of AI, people are very skeptical, particularly farmers. What are you going to do this data for? But secondly, also, farmer data have been abused in the past by researchers, where people go, and private sector sometimes, they collect data from the farmers, promise the farmers, we are collecting this data because we want to offer you services. We are collecting this data because we want to do this. But the last time you see this person is when he came to collect the data. So again, government can come in, the role of government, because government can be easily trusted by the farmers. I remember in Kenya, we used the local administrators, the chiefs, and the village leaders whom the farmers trust. And I think we did the same in Malawi. Because when a farmer is convinced by the person he knows is his leader or a leader, then they will offer authentic information. Because if you don't build that trust, then the farmers will give you wrong information. And therefore, you end up having poor quality data. And therefore, government must come strongly in building that trust and helping the project to, when they're collecting the data, so they get quality data. I think the other thing that is coming out is approaches. I think in terms of capacity, which approach will you use? If you don't have internal capacity, which in most cases, government institutions don't have capacity to collect that data themselves. So you don't have to use extension officers or your internal capacity to do so, because they will likely not to have the capacity to collect quality data. So what they will do, they will sit under a tree or in their homes and fill the questionnaire for you, and then you will not get accurate data. So in that also, in terms of data quality, what I could also advise, and I think we did this both in Kenya and Malawi, having been the person leading both processes, is that we build also what we call logical controls. In the tool that you use for data collection, you're able to build in logical control, so long as you use a digital tool, so that you can detect errors at the point of data collection. Because when you come to clean the data later, it's very difficult. So build logical controls into the tool. And that's why, for example, GPS coordinates is very important. We have seen cases where one enumerator picks 10 farmers or 20 in one location, which means you went to a church or a market or a hall and just was, so those ones are rejected. So the data collection process must also be so technically built in the process that you minimize quality at the point of data collection. Build logical control. The second is administrative controls. This enumerator must be supervised. This will not just be left alone. So how do you ensure that you supervise the data collection process? So that again is coming in. And that always comes with the cost element. But as Pamela said earlier, what we look at the cost and not the value proposition. So let's focus more on the value proposition of getting quality data, of what value it is to send 2 million, and then you get garbage. and opposed to spending 4 million and getting quality data. So those are what I think are coming out very, very clearly. And then the training of the people who are collecting that they know the value of collecting quality data.
Excellent. All right, that's very helpful. Let's move on. We have a little bit of time left. Table number 9. Do you want to share with us? Where's table number 9? Over here. And just tell us who you are, please.
Thank you so much. I am Audrey Namwaza. I'm coming from Malawi, representing table number 9.
Now, is this the Church of Malawi? No, this is something to go on. No, go on. We're good here.
Thank you. We had, yes? We had 3 challenges: data quality issues, high cost due to interest to collect wide array of parameters from the farmers, compatibility with other systems, other project information systems, and capacity to manage the process. And on the practical solutions, number 1, we had data quality checks, where we would have callbacks for quality assurance. And that is in cases where there are gaps. You would have callbacks. And also sensitizing the, carrying out sensitization and clarifying the objective of the data collection, especially for the farmers that are involved, and picking up champions within, could be political spectrum or the local leaders, in order to help the farmers involved understand the purpose of the data collection. And on number 2, on the high costs, we said there would be need for proper planning and also need for a digital agriculture roadmap. That would factor in the requirements from the onset, but also help in balancing the costs of collecting a wide array of information from the farmers and balancing that to the expected benefits of the exercise. On the compatibility issues, we said there would be need for coordination of efforts within the country to ensure that the systems are speaking to each other. And then on the issue of capacity, we indicated that there would be need for regular capacity building for the staff involved in order to carry out, to collect the required data. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, yes, I think we have to applaud our colleagues for stepping up. Want to take one more response to that one?
I just make one response. I think what's coming out from that table that we can really learn from what he's saying is the issue of what I would call intentional and embedded communication.
Intentional and embedded
communication. So in the whole process, let's embed communication and let's be intentional about communication. I think one of the gaps in implementing some of these projects which are complex in the sense that you're talking about digital, which is not a cup of tea for everybody, is how do you communicate? If people don't understand what you're doing and if people don't know what you're doing,
be suspicious.
Then
they won't
work. So I think the lesson here is that let's think about, let us be intentional and let's embed.
How do you embed? How do you embed it?
It's part of the process, from the start to the end.
So you plan from the beginning.
You plan from the beginning to the end. So it makes the communication is part and parcel of the whole process.
Very interesting.
That's embedding it.
Very
and intentional means that you actually make that it must be done.
There's so many issues you have to clearly, at the start, account for and plan for. I think we'd have time to take, we have about 2 minutes left. Should we take one more group? And that would be group number 11. If you could just give us your feedback. Group number 11. Where is group number 11? I will give you a little advance notice next time. Tell us who you are.
Thank you very much. Moses Rahero Mwesigwa is my name. I'm the Director of Desert Locust Control Organization for Eastern Africa.
Are you from Malawi? That's all I have to. No? Just tell me. Just be straight.
My home country is Uganda.
Oh, thank goodness.
But I'm based here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Thank you.
So I will not go to the challenges because most of them have been mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah,
focus on solutions.
Some
Absolutely.
of the practical solutions we came up with is to address the issue of connectivity. We looked at investment in infrastructure and increasing the population access to internet connectivity and digital devices. Because if we are promoting digitalization, people need devices, people need internet, people need all that. The second solution is on capacity building. This is at different levels. We are talking about data management and manipulation and collection. We need to build the capacity of the public officers at the higher levels, as well as the extension agents at the grassroots. And we also talked about the issue of having champions at the village level who will enhance trust building within the communities. Then we have increasing awareness of the farmers on the benefits of digitalization and, of course, building their trust. Because we realize that in most cases, when you try to capture data, the farmers don't usually trust our governments here. So they think you are going to increase their taxes, you are going to do all sorts of things. So we believe that one of the practical solutions is to increase the awareness and be open to the farmers as to why you need this data captured and stored in this way.
How it
And thank you.
Very good. Just a minute or two, and then we'll move on.
Okay, in a minute, I think what I would just add to there is that one, we need to think about hybrid solutions. And not everything has to be online 100%. So we have to design it so that you can work both offline and then online. For example, when you're collecting data, you don't need to be online. So you can collect it. You did design tools like in Kobo Toolbox, which are work offline, or services that work offline. But when you reach now where there's internet, you upload it to the system. So an hybrid solution is the way to go. But also the timing of doing data collection. Particularly if you do collection around elections, you expect to get resistance because people are trying to bring politics into what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the timing is also critical. So be strategic about your timing. I think in Malawi we were to do it last year because this year they have the election. So if we did it this year, it will be a lot of politics. So you also think about the timing.
Very good. Excellent. We're going to... Okay, very good. Just come to the microphone here quickly.
Thank you. Just a comment based on the conversation and what you were saying. We shouldn't forget learning in the community, right? Because every time it's about doing something to them. And there's a very important, I mean, it may have been suggested, it may be implicit because I was in and out, but I think there's a need to be explicit about the learning that communities themselves to understand when you come back to them with feedback, not necessarily because you want something or you want to advance your program, but just to give them feedback, that respect, to give them the feedback of what's happened. I think it's a very important part that's often missed in working with communities.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. An excellent point, in fact. Sir, I am going to turn it over to you for your 10-minute brilliant presentation, if we can have his presentation up. After this, we're going to then go back for a little discussion based on some of this input. And Boniface, over to you again.
Okay. Thank you. I'm told I have 10 minutes, so let me time myself so that it does not steal my... Okay, so I'll be talking about just building on what you said, learning from public and private sector on data, digital, and agtech. I don't know where it is working and where it's not working. Okay, good. Yes, so I think I want to start by what are the building blocks for succeeding in digital agriculture? And I start from a public sector lens. So there are 5 building blocks that we need to realize. Number one, you need to have what you call the infrastructure thinking. So everything rides and drives on infrastructure. And therefore you need to think around establishing an infrastructure for you to succeed in digital. And there are a lot of things you need to do around creating an infrastructure. And that's why now we talk about the DPI concept. How do you create the dynamic data platforms? How do you create the farmer registry and all this? Then the second thing is about governance, and how do you must anchor this into an institution and a public sector institution. We have talked about trust here. So how do you anchor all this into a public sector institution? And in that case, you need to identify champions. You need to have thought leaders, people who can think out of the box and drive it so that this is driving. And we need to think about innovative thinking, and also that institution will think about partnership. But a critical building block is develop a data and digital roadmap. And this should be built around the pain points, because the pain points are going to create the demand. And then you also need to think about partnership. How do you fund innovation, and how do you invest in use cases? And that can only come through partnership, through development partners, and also through the government. And lastly, how do you leverage on emerging technologies? Because we have to think about emerging technologies. Okay, so the second thing we want to think about is that for you to succeed in digital, you must understand and assess the ecosystem. In the 3 countries that are being mentioned here, 2 countries, and now the third one is Tanzania, what we did, we started by assessing and understanding the ecosystem. In that assessment, what we learned that you need instruments. And in the instrument, you need investments, you need technical assistance, you need policy, and then also you need to understand what's the role of stakeholders. Who are these stakeholders, and what's their role? And then you will have to, this will help you identify the pain points, because pain points what will stimulate the demand. Otherwise, it will be supply driven. So what are the pain points around production, market, enabling environment? And that leads you to strategies in the sense that we'll be able to now see where is the role of data digitization, where is the role of innovation, and how can we prioritize innovation, and how do we focus on scale and impact? Many times, project levels focus on scale and impact, which is very important. Now, I go to the case studies very fast. So I take the case of Kenya. So the Kenya journey started in 2013 to 2025. And the first thing which started was that there was the infrastructure thinking, and luckily I was the driver of the seat. And we established a digital infrastructure using future-ready technologies. And then we also did what you call, how do we socialize the stakeholders to understand this animal called digital agriculture? And that's why we also established the big data platform to address the challenges that we got from the assessment. And then we moved there to unleashing what we call local innovation, which is now the services, because data in itself is not what the farmer needs. The farmer needs services. How do we turn data into a service? So the success factor is not how much data you have collected, no matter how accurate it is, but how do you turn data into a service? And then we went to farmer registration. And then in 2019, we brought in the private sector. We did a mini roadmap, and that helped us to bring the role of the private sector. And the target was to reach 1 million farmers in 1 year. And then from 2021, we now move to efficiency, our path to efficiency. This investment of millions of dollars, which has gone to the country, how do we turn them into value and impact? So this is about scale and impact. And then we also now, deploying AI. How do you do fertilizer optimization? How do you do credit scoring? How do you do field delineation boundary? How do you leverage on transaction data? Because the foundational data is good, but you need to build transactional data on top of it so that you can now use modern use cases, leverage on technology like AI, deep learning, so that this data now has value to the stakeholders, partners, and farmers. Now, the game changer was when we came up with the big data platform. And the big data platform here was to look at what are the data that are needed. And we were able to collect the data from the farmers, and how do you then build that? How do you maintain that data? So how do you maintain that? Because when you register the farmer, it's one-off. But how do you maintain that data is maintained through a agripreneur model? And then how do you digitize all the data that exists in agriculture? But then farmers do not exist in a vacuum. You also have to digitize stakeholders. Priscilla talked about digitizing the agripreneurs here. And then now, remote sensing. There's a lot of data available in the space, in satellite, and not being utilized. Climate data, soil data, all these. How then do we leverage on the geospatial data, and then climate and weather data, and then market data? So all this data goes to the big data platform, but the gist of it is that how do you turn this into services that can now help policymakers, researchers? The research can be demand-driven, because many times research is not demand-driven. Research is for PhD and masters. But the research need to move to be demand to solve practical problems. How do they solve practical if they don't know the pain points? And this we can only know when we have data that help us to know the pain point that the research become demand-driven. What about the extension officers, whether private or public, and therefore farmers and pastoralists? So this is how we turned the Kenya digital ecosystem around. And then, in terms of partnership and driving from pain point, climate change is a real problem. And because the climate has changed, agriculture must also change. And therefore, we built what we call the Digital Climate Advisory Services with partnership with the CALRO, Tomorrow Now, Bill and Melinda Gates, and the World Bank. And this now, we build what we call a decision tree model, which now all you need to know is the planting date and the GPS of the farm. And you can advise this farmer on every critical stage of the crop what the farmer needs to do by an SMS. It's called weather-triggered advisory services. You can advise someone on suitable planting windows. When should they prepare to plant? And this is already happening. Farmers, the Malawi people in Kenya, and farmers were planting, and they were asking farmers, why are you planting and there's no rain? The farmers, we have been advised it's going to rain today. And before, when they looked at the sky, there was no sign of rain. But before they left the field, it was raining, using technology to advise farmers. Because agronomist tells me, if you lose your planting date by 14 days, you lose 40% of your production. Now, this also has come with another impact, where we've reduced the cost of sending the SMS from $1.3 to $0.1 because of scale. We are now, when we started reaching 205,000 farmers, and now we're reaching 5 million farmers, and that has helped us reduce the scale. But also, the farmer satisfaction have moved from good to excellent. Now, as I said, that there are things that the public sector can do very well, but there are things that private sector can do very well. So bringing in the private sector ecosystem into the digital ag is a game changer. So in 2020, we looked at how do we bring this. We did an ecosystem assessment. How many actors are there? We did an innovation challenge, and we selected 34 of them, and they have been supporting farmers. Hello Tractor, DigiCow, Digital Green, AgroCare, the list is long. So these have been able to transform the digital ecosystem in terms of service delivery. As I said, farmers need service and not data. And you can see Hello Tractor is reaching quite many. That's the number they're reaching. We can see M-Samba is reaching them with the market. We can see DigiCow is helping farmers to know when to do vaccination, when to do AI, and all the stuff. Now, I'll move to Ghana so that I don't talk about Kenya because I'm a Kenyan. Yes, so in Ghana, in 2013, I spent a lot of my time with the Ghana colleagues. And Ghana, we developed what we call the Ghana Agriculture and Business Platform, the GAP. Now, if you look at it also, the idea here is that we look at what's the central point here. Farmer data is central. But on top of that, you need governance and you need funding. You need instruments, you need investment. So we are again taking the learning from Kenya now to other countries, and Ghana was the first country we're taking these. So doing the assessment help, and we need funding and we need governance. And then we need farmer registry, but we brought in all actors together at once. The farmers and the finance sector, the financial institution, the market ecosystem, the government, remote sensing providers, and the actors into one platform, and digitizing them into and then we categorize our services. Which services belong to the farmers? Which one are for agribusiness? Which one are for government? So building all this ecosystem in one go. So by now they have registered about 1.2 million farmers, and they're moving on, and they're taking the geo point of the farmers. Now, the third case and the last case, or the second last case, is Malawi. So in 2024, going forward, I've spent a lot of my time in Malawi. In fact, it's becoming my second home. And what we realize in Malawi is that we look at the foundational data and infrastructure as very key. So that's the foundational data is being established, the farmer registry and the infrastructure. And then the institutional capacity is being built. And number 3, we will prioritize 5 use cases, which we want to start with. I think the pastor presented about that. But the pillars for this is data, digitization, and innovation. Now, in Malawi, we are thinking beyond just the foundational data. We have the UBR data, that's Universal Registry, which is basically for supporting for social services. We have the Land Information Management System data, which is also coming on, and then we have the farmer data. But we also want to integrate this with other local and regional data into what platform we call the NAMIS, which is under the data lake. And we have actually purposed 5 digital solutions, repurposing the AI, I think the pastor talked about it, digital extension, the pastor talked about it, digital marketplace, and the food situation. Now, lastly is, before I come to this, is also, I've been taking this knowledge now to Tanzania. In Tanzania, we just finished our ecosystem assessment, and we're planning how do we move on to the next step. And I hear Somali is also calling, and I think what we're trying to say here, we are taking this blueprint from Kenya, now building on Ghana, building on Malawi, building on what Tanzania into other countries. So then the future country will be accelerate much faster. In Kenya, farm registry started in 2016, ended in 2023. In Malawi, it was done in 50 days. Because we are taking lessons from this country, and so that we are looking at what worked, what did not work, how and why. So that in the future, we don't take much time like we took in Kenya. Always firstborn take longer before they get married because they're paying fees for their other siblings. But now, lastly, what we want to say here is that we are trying to say that it is not all digital. We could also think, how do we combine digital and physical? Yes, so I think, I don't know whether, I've not seen him here. I think I've taken less than 10 minutes. So if there's more time, you can ask questions. If there's no more time, I can clap for you because you're not clapping for me.
We're clapping for you. So just before we have any questions, we've got an exercise for you having listened to this. You've listened to these amazing case studies. A lot of data came up. We'd like you to sit in your groups now. If we could put the questions up on the slide here. You have 15 minutes in your group. If I see you're done a little earlier, we can be done a little earlier, but we want you to think of those examples and which of these examples could be applied to you in your table situation, given given the I better read it out properly, right? Which of these examples could work given the issues in your solutions canvas and in your own various contexts? Why or why not? So you already came up with some challenges and ideas. What you saw here, what could work and why wouldn't it? Or what could be applied? And then secondly, what other opportunities can you identify? We will have, if we could, I think you should have one card on the table. If not, we'll put one card on the table, which you can summarize on. I don't quite see them, but we'll get them to you right away, and then we're going to post them on the wall. And then we'll have some feedback, and then in addition to that, we'll have some answers to the questions here. So is that clear to everybody? So take those solutions you came up with and then think about what you just heard and see what can be applied. You have 15 minutes. Please start now. We'll make sure the cards are on, and we want you to summarize those in one of the cards we have, which is about this size. All right, let's go. 15 minutes. One each table, yeah. Just 4 minutes left before we get back. So we're just going. Final minute. Let's, Boniface, let's come up to the front here. All right, everybody. I think we had a little discussion and realized that it might be useful, before we hear your group feedback, to have a quick little Q&A with Boniface. I mean, we gave you a lot of information in a short time, so I think it's useful to be able to have a little Q&A if you'd like. We're just getting a microphone coming here. A little Q&A to help clarify any questions, after which we will have group number 21, I mean 12, group 13, group 14, and we'll keep going if we have other groups. So, does anyone have any questions for Boniface on the presentation before we get into the group work? Yes. And so microphones, if we could identify, that's the second one.
I am Afekana Jerome from Africa Union. We did not hear, thank you for the very lucid presentation, but we did not hear much about farmers paying for this particular service. Can you elaborate on this? Because if it has to be self-sustaining, invariably there has to be a cost.
Should we take another question first?
Thank you very much, Boniface, and for the great presentation. So I'm Ken. I work for FAO on digital agriculture. So I want to ask, what about data governance frameworks? Because I believe that because we have many providers sometimes that are in the country, private sector or even government department that are working on that, there is a need to have a good data governance framework so that people know how they can collect the data, how they can use the data, what they can follow in terms of ethics, etc.
Yeah.
Maybe you have that issue as well
Yeah.
over there.
Good. We'll take 3, and then that's number 4, but we'll just respond to 3 and then come to you, sir.
Thank you once again. My name is Carol. Mine is only on one thing. As he was presenting, he mentioned something very critical about communication at all levels. But then, in his presentation, as you're developing these systems, where is the feedback mechanisms here?
Good question, yeah.
Where is the safeguards in here? Because as farmers utilize some of these digital systems, there are issues which come. How do we capture them? Are we ensuring that the safeguards, risks are also considered into or embedded into these databases? So this is what I wanted to add on, because I know the bank is so passionate about this, and so we need to see how that is also.
Absolutely. We're going to answer these 3, then you're next, and then you're next, and then you're next. And so let me take those 3. It looks like we've got a lot of questions. I think that's good.
I'll be quick so that we can allow many people to ask questions now.
60 decibels feedback.
Okay. Yeah. So the pay, sustainability. Sustainability has been a question for quite some time. How do we sustain these services? Because they are World Bank funded, these are project-led kind of initiatives. What happened beyond the project? Now, I invite you to Google a report called Digital Farming in Kenya. In 2019,
Digital farming in Kenya.
Yes, it's public. So 2019, the Netherlands government asked me the same question, and I did a study for the Netherlands governments, and it's public, digital farming in Kenya. And in that report, we found out 5 sustainability models that can work. Number 1 is called the premium, where farmers can subscribe and pay for the services. Now, for the premium to work, farmers must see value. So the gist of it is to ensure that, how do we ensure that farmers see value? How do you demonstrate value? So during the project life, focus on demonstrating value. I move from 1 bag per acre to 10 bags per acre, and this service has enabled me. The second is called the freemium. The freemium is where you offer some service for free, and some of them farmers subscribe. So you have to categorize your services, which ones are for free and which ones are for subscription. So because you can't charge farmers for everything. The other one is what's called the loyalty model, where you bundle it with private sector banks, insurance, technology companies, and therefore it's become part of contract delivery service. So you don't charge farmers directly, but it's bundled into the service delivery contract and service delivery model. The seed companies, the fertilizer companies, they say, I'll send you agronomists for free, but you buy the seed from me, but then you don't buy. Then we have what we call the social model. The social model is where either government or an NGO pays for it. And in most cases, we're using the social model. So it's something that it depends on your context, but the gist of it is you must demonstrate value. If you read that report, you'll get more details into that report. It was for the Netherlands government. Now, in terms of data governance, again, very critical. So data governance, you need 2 things. You need a governance framework that defines how data is going to be shared between institutions, private sector, and public sector. So you need a legal policy, a framework policy, which can now describe who is responsible for what, how is data going to be shared, how are you going to ensure issue of privacy, issue of security, issue of data confidentiality, and misuse of that data. And there are also data protection laws for different countries. We also are aligned with the data protection law. So that is the legal framework part of it that you need to have. We already have that in Kenya. We have the Data Protection Act 2019, and we also have done a data governance which is actually supported by FAO. Kenya. Now, you need a technology. So you need two things. You need a legal framework, and you also need a technology that enables seamless exchange of this data between parties, and also ensuring data security. So in Kenya, they've already done one with digital grid, which is called the Farm Stack. So the Farm Stack actually help you ensure security. But they're now going further to establish a DPI architecture, that digital public infrastructure architecture, which now brings technology like federated learning. These are AI-enabled technologies. For example, I use my phone to access money from my bank without the telco knowing what I'm doing. They don't have access to my bank account. They don't know whether I've removed money or not, but I'm using the mobile technology to access my bank, my money from the bank. Now, that's an example of federated learning, where in this big data platform we have built, you can now leverage, can now build services on top of that data to farmers without actually data moving from where it is hosted, without them seeing what they're not supposed to see. They're only supposed to build a technology that enable them to offer service to the farmers. If you want to sell seed to the farmer, offer your seed service to the farmer. You want to fertilizer, you want to advise them, you don't have to see that data. You don't have that data to move. That's what we call federated learning. So you need a technology and a legal framework. Lastly, it's about feedback. So feedback, you can achieve them in 2-3 areas. For example, in Kenya, through Bill and Melinda Gates, they've been funding 60 Decibel, who goes to do a study every season when farmers are planted and when they have harvested, and they're collecting feedback from farmers, and they're bringing this report. This is what farmers said about whether they're satisfied or not, whether the challenge they're having. This is whether the challenge is improving. And the report is available. Google about 6 Decibel report about Kenya, digital farmer service in Kenya. It's available there. So that is one way. How many are satisfied? 72%, 20%? Why are they not satisfied? Why are they satisfied? So one is to commission what we call lean evaluation studies by an independent body. So those lean evaluation studies will give you feedback on what's happening. But then you might also need real-time feedback, where you don't need to wait for a study to get the feedback. So in Kenya, we built a call center where farmers call, and farmer can also be called. It's a toll-free number where farmers call, and they give feedback. You were advised it was going to rain yesterday. It did not rain. You lied to us. You told me to plant this. No, we've never lied to them, but I'm giving an example.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yes. So I'm giving an example. So the call center also gives you a room to get feedback from the farmers, which can now see if a farmer has raised a complaint, it can be picked up by the safeguards, but also the technology innovators can also pick it up. So feedback, but also the call center can also use to randomly call farmers and gather some quick feedback from what's happening. If you have just launched an innovation or a service, you can randomly pick, like now, when we launched the suitable planting window service, we randomly called 1,000 farmers just to see, we said we're going to rain plant, did it work for you? The last is working with local agents, people who are closer to the farmers. So you also, that's why partnership becomes very critical, where you work with local agents, we are closer to farmers, and you can also use those local agents or local institutions to collect feedback. 3 points to collect feedback.
Well, let's go. Let's take at least 2 more questions before we hear the group feedback. There was you, sir, and then there was a question. Who is back there? There, yeah, please. Tell us who you are, of course.
Thank you. My name is Manyo Mtamba. I'm with the African Union Development Agency, NEPAD. My first question is, it's actually motivated by an observation from our table here. I noticed that we were not picked to speak, so I have to sneak this one in.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said it, should I?
Yes. So it's related to pastoral communities, because we see there's quite a bias on perhaps cropping systems, sedentary communities, but we have huge populations of pastoral communities on the continent. So we also need tools to be able to deal with that. So that's the first part. The second part is related to the issue of, I see that most of the tools are almost top-down. The ability for farmers to also be able to feed in information into these systems, because I believe it becomes more efficient once we start creating platforms that allow farmers to be able to input, whether it's updates, whether it's requests for them to be able to link with service providers, for them to be able to give you, the kind of feedback that you were talking about as well. I think this is an area that needs focus.
Thank you. Good points. And when it comes time for you to speak for your group, don't feel you have to say it all again. But that's really important. Let's have one last question and hand the microphone there, and then we'll have to go to groups. We'll get you next time. Tell us who you are, sir.
My name is Khalid Abdul. I'm from Tanzania Food System Resilience Program. My question is, can you share the actual example on how the transformation that you have made can affect the policy change on your country? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Now, the first question on the pastoralist. Yes, I think there has been a concern of bias that we always talk about crops. But I think you have to be intentional about including livestock and also pastoralists. My answer to you, do not build digital services in a boardroom. It must be demand-driven. I've sat in the grass with farmers just to understand their pain points, just to understand how do they want us to communicate with them, which language, what time. Once we sent an SMS to farmers, and immediately we followed up with physical visit, and were asked, did you receive the SMS? And once I was with farmers in a group like this, we were sitting on the grass, and I sent them an SMS, and I asked them, did you understand what the SMS is? And 90%, in fact, 100% they did not understand. And then I explained what I wanted to explain to them, what I was saying. Then they said, in fact, the message was very simple. If there is too much water in your farm, prepare drainage. And all those farmers never understood what I meant. So I explained, then they said, you would have told us, if there's too much water in the farm, remove the water. Removing the water, we know. If that's what you call drainage, it's okay. But removing the water, we know. So also pastoralists, understand their nature of enterprise. Understand their pain points. In Kenya, we digitize even the pastoralist so that we understand what kind of service do they need. So you will see a lot of crop, but you have to be intentional about pastoralists. The question you were saying about is top-down. Top-down is because of our problems. We sit in a boardroom like this, and we design services for farmers. We want to import something from Europe, from America, with nothing wrong with that. The report I did for Netherlands, the question was, these technologies work in Netherlands and in Europe. We take them to Africa, they don't work. What's the problem? One of the problems was they don't understand the context. Yeah. Farmer services must be contextualized, must be localized. So I use a method called an adhesion process, where you adhere together with the stakeholders. You adhere with the farmers. You adhere with people who provide the service. So it's not an isolated process. So it's not a top-down. And number last, I said in the second diagram, understand the pain points. So when you address a pain points, then you will increase adoption. We did a study with FCDO in 2020. We look at barriers to adoption of digital services. And one of the things we found was that one of the barriers was relevance. Is the service relevant? Is the content relevant? Relevance means it is personally relevant to my problem. Is it relevant to my language? So this process of top-down is our own creation. So we should actually be careful when we're designing this. When we use the adhesion process, we look at what are the barriers to adoption, we understand the pain points, we must stimulate demand through impact and value. Lastly, is an example where there's been actual transformation. The list is many. We have a report, Google Digital Services by 6 decibel in Kenya. You will see practical examples where farmers are saying their germination improved by just being told the weather advisories so that they were planted at the right time. We have farmers saying their yield improved because they were advised how to manage pests and diseases. We have farmers that have improved their resilience and practices because of the advisories they were getting. So we have behavior changes. We have seen farmers changing their behavior. We have seen farmers increasing their yield. We have seen farmers managing their pests and diseases. That's why we talk about localized advisory. You have to advise the farmers localized. So there are many, many examples. If you read 60 decibel, you will see them. And also, I don't know, PAMES has been running some series on what is cooking, where there have been a lot of reports from the innovators who are reaching. Allo Tractor, for example, has installed sensors in the tractor. And as the tractor is going, it's collecting environmental, it's collecting soil moisture, it's collecting all these. And they're using all that to advise the farmer which fertilizer to apply, which seed which seed is the right seed, how should the land be, what the soil structure and the soil depth, all that. And we're seeing 1-point-something million farmers using all this. But we're also seeing this creating jobs for the young people. We have DigiCow that is now telling farmers, when do you need to do artificial insemination? When is the cow on heat? So that you don't keep on missing, because once you miss it out, that insemination is gone. So it's that he gave me 10 minutes. How can I explain this in 10 minutes? But there are practical examples and there are reports to this.
You did so well in 10 minutes.
There are practical examples which we can also give you. In fact, in PAMES presented is what's called What is Cooking. In that series, if you Google there, you'll see a lot of impact stories and a lot of impact from the innovators in Kenya that are actually been using this digital service. So we have practical examples.
Yeah.
If we had another pastor from Kenya, like the pastor from Malawi, they would have told you many good examples in Kenya.
You're pretty good, my friend. You're pretty good. That is great. So listen, we've got about 20 minutes left to hear from the groups. Those presentations will be ready to share. But obviously, you were hearing important things. You don't just smear on technology. You understand the context. You're always listening. It should be about that context, not just from Canada or anywhere else. Group number 12, at last. Where are you? We're here. Madam,